On Wednesday, we brought you part 1 of the story on the closure by the Ministry of Education of St. Peter's College, an adult night school in San Pedro. As we reported, the shutdown followed repeated letters of correspondence from the ministry to the proprietor and manager of the government-subsidized night school, Frank Nunes, to get the school to meet certain requirements listed in the Education and Training Act. These included providing records for every student, transparency, as well as the school's financial records. As San Pedro's education officer Miriam Codd told us on Wednesday, there were numerous attempts by the ministry to prevent the closure, but to no avail.
From the records that we have concerning this closure of the operations at St. Peter's College, we have quite a number of recommendations that previous investigation teams have forwarded to Mr. Frank Nunes.
That were not adhered to.
Right. And so there are quite a number of them.
During our visit with the school's proprietor and manager, Frank Nunes, he said that the institution did try to meet the ministry's requirements.
These are the particular files of each individual student. And for example, here from each class, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3 and Form 4. And if you notice here, it marks complete. It's because everything is in there that the government requires.
Is there anything in there that is incomplete?
Yes, we have 1 or 2 that are incomplete because, for example, they never did bring it, they left school and they didn't come back, so we couldn't complete their records.
And the majority of those
The majority of these are complete.
But there was one instance, Nunes admits, when the school could not produce the records for one of its graduates, who also happened to be the high school's valedictorian.
Unfortunately, that was the file that did not have a transcript.
Why?
Because the parents, she came from Lebanon. Actually, she did her Standard 6 at Isla Bonita in San Pedro and graduated from there in the elementary, but then she went to Lebanon. And when she came back, she was asking for this copy of her transcript, and well, she never did actually had it on file. She had her passport, she had everything, but that particular paper was not on file.
She graduated?
She graduated, yes.
She legitimately had scores to earn a diploma?
Yes, because she was actually even the valedictorian.
There are 2 documents in the file. There's not a report of grades in the file, whereas you have, I asked him how did he come about with that decision and what made him do it. And he said, well, he has his own grade book and that they enter the grades manually and that the valedictorian is decided based on 1 year performance, and that is 4th form performance. So he showed me 2 semester grades for the student that is in question. No?
Can you definitively say that there has been no hanky-panky, there has been no corruption involved in the spending in terms of handling the finances of the school?
Well, as I said, since Miss Candy has been there and had put us in there,
How long?
Miss Candy, this is about 2 years, actually. Because we used to run the school without any proper, we never had, we used to run it and we used to pay teachers by cash and things like that. But
so you never had no kind of records?
No.
For how long?
Records of the school, for example, yes, that the students' records, yes,
no,
but
I'm
not in the
record.
No,
you didn't have any records?
Never did, actually.
Of the finances?
Because, well, I never did thought that necessary, actually.
But according to Debbie Graniel, the school's principal who recently resigned, there is much more to the story than meets the eye.
In those 2 years that I was there, I could see a lot of things happening. For example, we had some girls coming into the 1st form and they speak no English and they're not from Belize.
You had to deal with them?
We had to deal with them, but that wasn't the problem. Yes, no, the problem was that they had no records of actually going into a primary school anywhere else. And then when they would come here, the ministry requires you to have either a transcript or a transfer. I made their report cards stating that they were in the daytime school.
Why did you do this?
For my pay. I was obligated in a sense. I was instructed by the principal to. In fact, all I did was sign it. He made the report card.
Do you know that's illegal?
I know it is illegal, and I am more than willing to take any consequences that come at me as long as the right thing is done.
This is an allegation that Nunes vehemently denies, and in turn told us today that he filed a report with the San Pedro police that Graniel has threatened him and his family. But whether Graniel's allegations are true or not, there are also other issues that the Ministry of Education has with the school. For instance, the ministry's newly appointed education officer to San Pedro conducted an on-site inspection of the building used for the night classes and the primary school.
Where does that open into? Where does it open into?
She was at a loss for words, to say the least. Your first perception of what you saw at the school?
I saw classrooms that are in need of attention in terms of meeting standards of proper ventilation, in terms of meeting size and space allocations, and just they're not clean. They were not clean, sanitary, and the bathrooms were right at the classroom.
These letters of correspondence show the ministry's attempts to dialogue with Nunes at least 3 times. But even after the letters to the school, Nunes feels that he was not dealt a fair hand.
I should have been called or summoned to ministry to let me know, well, you are not complying with these things. None of these things.
How many letters of correspondence did you receive?
I received that one that we mentioned, that twice we got it. Twice.
Okay.
And then the last one was the one that where they were giving us a certain time to have everything in order, which was the separation of meters.
What about the financial?
Well, as
records?
I said, we give a financial record, and every month, for example, we have a record of the school.
While the college has been closed down, the ministry has permitted Nunes to operate the primary school for 1 more year, on the condition that it closely follows the regulations and meets the requirements set out. Nunes told us that he will open for primary school classes come September and will strive to meet those requirements. Each of the 90-plus students who attend his private primary school must pay $150 for registration and $150 in fees each month. Even at these rates, he says, St. Peter's remains the cheapest primary education institution in San Pedro. Marian Ali reporting for Love News.